All right, and we are back with another episode. Really excited for this one. I got some guys on today that I got to be on their podcast last week. Actually, we scheduled this thing quick, and I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to let them get straight into it, and they're going to break down just a little bit about themselves. Each one of them is going to spend a few minutes doing that. They're going to talk about how they got connected and what they're doing, and then we're going to just get to talking. So this is a free conversation. We're just going to go by the fly of our pants here, talking about a few things that they're doing. But let's start off with Marcos, because I know Marcos, and he actually coached me in the past through nutrition. I learned a lot from this guy, so I want to start off with him and let him talk a little bit about himself. And then, yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the intro, Jonathan. So me, who I am, so I'm Marcos Rivera. I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. Been here for 30 years, and I've been doing this health coaching thing now for going on like 10 years. Probably longer if you would consider being a CrossFit coach in like my late teens, as part of that. And I think inevitably it is part of who I am and how I can resonate with people, and why we came up with the kind of framework that we use now, because it's something that actually is part of my life and part of like my existence and also part of Seamus's as well. So I started as a CrossFit coach, and I kind of always knew that I wasn't going to be one to open my own facility. Kind of knew that it just feel like I didn't get it at the right time. It was like during the boom, and I was a young kid. I'm like in college trying to figure things out, but really had a passion for training. And at the time, it was definitely like athletic pursuits, right? So I was like, why am I coaching a bunch of people that are like 20 years older than me plus normally? Like, is this common? Is this normal? Where are all the athletes at?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And lo and behold, yeah, most of the people that you're interacting with when you're coaching are generally a little bit older. You're kind of like the younger kid, trading your time for a free membership and making very little, and kind of just understanding that you're trying to build a skill set. So I was super appreciative to, get my start there and come across a bunch of people. While I started coaching at like a smaller gym, that I saw a buddy post on Instagram about, and made some great connections and family friends and people that I'm still connected with to this day. I eventually went to CrossFit Max Effort, where I did most of my training, and was really trying to pursue that, athlete endeavor with CrossFit. And injuries, all those other things related to it, having kids at a young age, definitely helped me transition to the next phase of life. We'll call that athlete 2.0, because I quickly became a parent and a busy, professional person trying to figure out what the hell it is I'm going to do with life. And then really kind of stumbling into where we're at today. So fast forward a few years after coaching people and the, face-to-face interactions, into now a lot more in the remote sense. Seamus and I actually work for a company called Cenogenics. That's actually where we met initially about 2 years ago, like almost to the day, I feel like. And I actually did Seamus's training to do all the diagnostics and paperwork and stuff with our long. I'd call it a performance health practice, but really the best way of describing that to people is like longevity principles, but people that are high performers.
Yeah.
So with that company, we do the same kind of coaching realistically, but it's for a different audience. It's for people that tend to be a little more affluent. We try to capture people that are looking for concierge medicine care. And, that's kind of what my life has been for the last 5 years, plus doing, health coaching with people that are more athletically inclined, people that may not be CEOs and business owners, and people that are like up there in that phase of life yet. And I find that I like working with different varieties of people, but the people I'm most passionate are the people that we're trying to kind of capture with our audience now. And it's taken some time to refine that. So that's kind of my backstory. Just kind of been a coach since day one. I've done some teaching. My background is actually, I have a degree in math, so most people don't know that about me. And I'm very much so a very logical person. So coaching does not come easy to me. I have to work really hard, because
Yeah.
empathizing with stuff at times, I'm like, emotion, like, what is that? Right. Like, why is that getting the best of you? And then, lo and behold, one of my favorite stories is, had a younger guy. He was like early 30s, young kids. And I was like, why is he having such a fucking hard time? I don't know if I can cuss on this, but too bad.
No, you're
So
good,
why is he
brother.
having such a, I was like, why is he having such a hard time? Like, why is it that like the nighttime is where he's starting to struggle? Fast forward to where I'm at now at 30 with 2 kids, and it's like, yo, like I just want to like eat everything in the pantry. I do not care. I just want to get this stress out of my life. So yeah, young coach me is like being like, this is for you, bro. Like this is for all the clients that you didn't understand until now.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's super cool. I love hearing people's just the way that they transition through their career and how they end up where they are. So with that being said, let's go back and talk to Seamus here about his story so that way we can connect the dots. And yeah, I do want to hit a little bit on the company that y'all both worked for, because one thing I will say is I know that both of y'all are two very smart guys. And in order to be on that staff, I'm sure you had to have a level of expertise that was higher than normal, right? So I do want to hit on that in a minute, but let's let Seamus explain a little bit about himself before we get into that.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me here, Jonathan, as well. I loved our podcast last week, so it's great that we're here for round two. But my name's Seamus Sullivan. I'm from California. I actually grew up my first 7 years of life in the Philippines, and I moved over here in Southern California, the Los Angeles area, and from there, kind of got into sports and activities. Playing baseball, playing basketball. I was in the Philippines. You're a big like basketball fan. Everyone loved the Lakers, and like so that was like my first sport. But I realized like I just like to have a taste of everything. But I fell in love primarily with wrestling because of the watching like my brothers. They like had time in Taekwondo and martial arts, and I was like, well, I want to do more of that, and was watching like UFC on Strike, the Ultimate Fighter, and I was like, oh, I love this. And so as a young kid, got into some wrestling in middle school, some of that jiu-jitsu, and then in high school competed at the highest level in high school as well. Didn't get to national level, but I got to represent some big teams in California. And then I got to wrestle in college a few seasons, more club collegiate, but still got to the national level there, which is still pretty difficult to get to say, hey, you get to wrestle in college. And during that time, I was also getting my degree in exercise science. And at the time that I was in college wrestling, handling all that, I was a personal trainer, managing a gym, managing a team. Just love that. It was a grind, waking up at 3 a.m., getting to a gym across town, which is about like 45 minutes. So getting up at 3 just to get ready at 4, leave, open the gym at 5, coach classes from 5 to 10, get in my car, get to school, take a nap, then go into classes. And then after that, run an internship for a few years called Commit to Be Fit. So I was coaching pretty much from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. every night for a few years in college. I still had to do my wrestling practices, still had to do that. But then after my collegiate stint, getting my exercise science degree, the reason I got my degree in exercise science, just to backtrack a little, is because I always got injured. I wanted to be a physical therapist. So that's what like that vernacular of like why the degree in exercise science, why not just start coaching, being a personal trainer, run your own business or something. And I had many mentors, and I realized, coaching people, I loved it more than being in the physical therapy background. During this time, 2013, physical therapy, you were required to get a certain licensee, and then you were required to be a DPT. So there were some transitions there. So it became way more competitive. Cal State University Northridge only allows 1 to 2% of the population to get into their DPT program, let alone their athletic department, training department. Yeah. So CSUN was actually one of the best physical therapy programs out there, or like one of the best to get into physical therapy programs. It just got that much more competitive, and I love the business side of coaching people, managing gyms. And my mentor was always telling me, he's like, you could get all the degrees you want. No one cares how smart you are until you know that you care about them. Getting your degree doesn't necessarily mean you'll be a successful person either. And he had his master's degree, and he was running a business. So a lot of my mentors gave me, during my time in managing gyms and all that stuff, a lot of tenure in like how to do business and how to coach and how to be a people person. Because I'm very much logically minded, like Marcos as well. Like exercise science is my degree. I love just tell me what the body does. But no one likes to be told what the body does. You gotta give it to them in a certain way. Like, I know you're struggling today because of this, this, and this, and this. I was always injured, so that's why I want to be a physical therapist. But after that, I managed another gym, managing clients. I've also coached in the collegiate sense, D1 athletes. And then my biggest thing is I coached up to professional combat athletes at some point as well. So had a few Bellator fighters underneath me. And then like some jiu-jitsu Pan Am champions and some Muay Thai guys and boxers. And they're more amateur, some pro level, but very much like still people that were working a 9 to 5 and just being like a weekend warrior trying to do professional fight or like a smoker fight. So my background there being a strength coach, and that led to more so later on into COVID, when I was doing more online coaching due to the fact that I was manning a gym, but there was no one in the gym. And that's where the online performance happened. And there was a big transition in my life. My lady, she's like a clinical dietitian. We made a move for her to basically allow her to experience her career and get some internships closer to where we needed to move. And from there, actually, Synergenic seeked me out, and that's how I met Marcos. So yeah, that's what we're here today. It's a little longer time running, but the biggest, I think, the long time running concept in that is that both Marcos and I have been in this game since pretty young. We've been moving our bodies. We've been like what you call previous athletes, and now we're living what we call the athlete 2.0 lifestyle, being, high performers, yet we're busy professionals, parents, or just people that are health conscious and are just trying to do our best day to day, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. And I think one thing I pulled out of that is just like you said, you guys have been in the game for a while, right? And I think to go along with that, we're going to talk in a few minutes about what y'all are doing now, and what that all consists of. But when we get into that, I want everybody listening to recognize like how experienced these guys are, because it's really important. And I think a lot of coaches miss out on this nowadays because online coaches are such the thing now. That is what people want to do, but most of those guys don't have experience coaching. And when you don't have that in-person experience, you don't have the actual that connection with people in person. It can be pretty hard to get it across over the internet. It's really difficult to communicate through just words. So these guys have a lot of experience, which is a really cool thing. So with that, just y'all working together. What was that company exactly? Like, what did y'all do from a coaching perspective? Was it nutrition? Was it training? And then what level of knowledge and expertise did that take for you to be able to be part of a team like that? Either one of y'all can take that over. If you have thoughts, you can obviously jump back and forth with each other.
Well, Marco's been there for longer, so he'll take the ropes on this one.
I think that's the common misconception, is that like you have to have these credentials really accrued in the beginning. And while it's like a great help in the beginning, it is kind of where experience can kind of take over. So while Seamus has more of that educational route of like getting in when he got hired, mine was definitely not the case. And basically I was a CrossFit like level 2 coach. I had a few other nutrition endorsements, to kind of like justify like getting into the team about 5 years ago. But realistically, I was a part of the beginning stages of NCI. So before NCI started doing the Nutritional Coaching Institute, that company was IN3 Nutrition, and also I guess Jason Phillips Nutrition before that. So that led me to be around a great group of people. We're still all kind of in contact. It's kind of harder, everybody's kind of doing their own thing these days, as like separate entities. But from there, one of my mentors, Travis, was my role. He was the job that I had, and so he put in a good word for me, saying, "Hey, you already know what to do. The doctor that you're going to work for, you've already been I'd been coaching that doctor in CrossFit, so he knew my personality type. He knew kind of who I was as an individual." And kind of went to bat for me a little bit. So that definitely helped a good deal. And so you never know who you're going to impress or who's going to be around. Is kind of like the moral of the story there. And in Vegas, it very much so is like kind of who not necessarily what you know. So you can always get the what down the road, and you just have to be willing to step into some uncomfortable territories, because you might be at this moment where you really understand how to coach a certain group of people. CrossFit athletes being an example here. Well, then how do you apply that to an older demographic and an older population, which is our patient base, right? I think our average patient is about 50 plus, right? And again, these people aren't coming in and wanting and expecting to be on the floor after a workout. They're wanting a different level of, coaching. So you put in a good word. Next thing you know, it's 5 years later. And amidst all that is where I've continued to pursue additional education. And so as of today, Seamus and I both are like level 2 master health coaches through PN. I have a certification not only through like NCI, but through IHP level 1 and level 2. So things that are a little bit more holistic practicing, things that I can apply that are not so macro specific to people and our patient base, give them something that hopefully gets them to actually remain accountable and actually take some steps forward in their health journey. And yeah, so I mean, that's my journey of getting in was, again, just being around a group of people that were constantly motivated and looking for things. And then just, I think luck is where preparation meets opportunity. I was prepared enough to be willing to learn and understand systems. And we do a ton of diagnostics in our practice. So it was like, how quick can you learn these things and get hands-on? And I'm not going to lie, most of my tenure in the beginning was a very weird spot in our company's existence because there was a lot of transitioning and moving parts. And at the same time, the thing that was kind of changing was the fact that COVID then occurred. So I started in 2018, COVID happens. I mean, to be honest, I think Seamus, with 2 years under his belt, has seen more patients than I have because of the halt that occurred for our organization at the time. And that's because he's full-time solo person in his practice, whereas our Las Vegas office has 3 or 4 different health coaches that help service different doctors at that center level. So I know that sounds crazy. It's like how the person that has more years, again, doesn't make me more experienced. It just means that I may have had to like learn things a lot quicker, which is kind of like a skill set that I think a lot of people may not understand is really important. How quick can you grasp things? How quick are you willing to pivot? We're bringing all these new ideas and these new ways to test people with their biomarkers and their biometrics, and how well can you understand how to relay that information when all of us are learning it from scratch, essentially. So I just kind of lean on my education background and, just constantly be willing to learn new things. So that's kind of, there for me.
To add on to that too, like with our Synergenics practice, these are longevity principles, as Marcos was alluding to before. So I would say like a name that hits on that is like the Peter Attia model, right? People have been loving his podcast, his book. Like that's the best way to kind of explain it. But Synergenics has been the #1 leader in this space for a long time. A lot of these spaces are kind of coming up based on the Synergenics model and based off of Synergenics teachings, because they've been around since 97. So they've been doing a lot of this stuff, and I think they've been on the premiere of that. But I think sometimes you get, as a brand, you sometimes, you're a little peculiar, but you're still like the head honcho. So it's there. And just to say, on the scientific stuff, the exercise physiology stuff and all this stuff, a lot of that stuff that we do is, again, diagnostics. It's there to see what someone is doing objectively and then subjectively feed it back to them. And I think the bridge between that, Marcos and I, we get all these certifications. We're working to get to become what we call like a board certified health and wellness coach. And if you look at what like a health and wellness coach does, is they bridge the gap between healthcare from the physician, from a physical therapist, maybe a clinical dietitian, and the patient. Sometimes I know, because my family has been in healthcare. My mom's member services. My fiance, she's a registered dietitian. They play multiple roles, right? They play multiple roles, and sometimes they're a health educator. Sometimes they're this, and this. For example, in Southern California, Kaiser's always asking for health educators with certain credentials and things like that. The reason is they're so impacted in that space that like a health educator is sometimes the physical therapist, which is not the best use of like the physical therapist's time. They just have to fill that role. But what Marcos and I are really doing is bridging the gap between what medicine looks like, fitness and nutrition and health and wellness, and kind of just blending it into a space. We're almost playing like multiple roles and have multiple hats. But we're just bridging 2 worlds here, and we're doing our best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do think a lot of people miss that, is that like the medicine and then the coaching are 2 totally different things. Like a lot of the medical side of things is focused on disease prevention and dealing with disease, versus like coaching is lifestyle. Coaching is obviously you're trying to bridge the gap between that side of the spectrum of disease and stuff, but like the coaching side is built to be able to bridge that gap for people. And I don't think a lot of people actually fully understand that. And I get that a lot from people that are like, well, my doctor told me to do this and my doctor told me to do that. And I'm like, well, your doctor's kind of giving you terrible advice just from like a practical standpoint, like he doesn't have the education on the coaching front, and that's not his job. So I love that y'all were in that are in that practice now. And with that being said, I do want to get into what you guys are working on right now. This is going to be a fun topic for us because we're all ex-athletes. We love the athletic training, the athletic approach model. So I want you guys to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing in Athlete 2.0, what that means. And while you're at it, break a little bit down about what these 4 B's are that you mentioned to me. So that way we can get into that.
Sure thing. So, Seamus, I'll let you do the Athlete 2.0 sales pitch or elevator pitch.
Yeah. And then you could jump into the B's of body composition. So what we like to say is, look, Athlete 2.0 are what we call X, quote unquote, and inspiring athletes. And we say Athlete 2.0 because you're an athlete for life. You're a busy professional. You're like an accommodating parent, yet you're a health conscious person with high performance goals. What does this mean? It could mean, look, I'm a firefighter day to day. I work 12-hour shifts, but yet I want to do a Spartan race on the weekend. I got clients like that. Or, hey, you know what? I work a 9 to 5 behind the computer as IT, but I like to play basketball. Or, hey, you know what? I'm trying to compete in my first freaking marathon. How can you help me do that? That's what we like to do. But I'm also a busy, parent and doing all these things. So we call it Athlete 2.0 because it's an athlete for life. It's not an athlete like for sport anymore. You're trying to figure out your new self-image and identity for life. And that's just a community that we've created. But the cool thing about that is we have a few frameworks. I think I'm super excited to unveil this one, but we have the B's of body composition. I'll let Marcos hit that one.
Yeah. So with the B's of body composition, there's 4 main ones, but there is a 5th one. So as we see it, everybody that starts with coaching or wanting to kind of create their own thing, we're all talking about the same kind of framework in essence, right? Like the science behind it's still the science behind it, but we wanted to have it in terms that we felt would be more specific to like someone that identifies with being an athlete, right? So we can kind of build on that. And so our beginning stage is baseline. And so I kind of stole this from CrossFit because people that come in, the first workout they would ever do is baseline. What is your capacity? What does this look like? And how do we scale this workout to be appropriate for you? Day one. And that baseline workout for the CrossFit athlete in the room, it's a very simple workout. You row 500 meters, you do 40 squats, air squats, so bodyweight squats. You would do like 30 sit-ups, 20 push-ups, and 10 pull-ups. And you can scale that in any which way that you deem most appropriate. And so with that, everybody comes in, you get your scaling on day one, but then you repeat that workout, right? Like, so your baseline workout doesn't really change a whole lot, but your baseline changes, right? So people were like, in a month or 2, they were able to maybe do pull-ups or do push-ups at a different level. And it's like, that's not the point. You're doing this workout and seeing how quickly you can do it. So baseline is our initial phase, right? What do we know about you? What can we try to establish? What can we create that is going to be a nutritional baseline, right? And obviously in that phase, there are some other variables that you're starting to interpret and add to, right? A lot of people might be like, move more, eat more, or, whatever that protocol looks like. For here, it's like, let's stay consistent with our food. Let's start to understand that. Let's track and understand like where you're at currently. And then let's decide what phase you then need to go into. Obviously, we know most people come in, they want to go into a burn phase, right? Fat loss, right? But we can't go anywhere unless we've established the baseline. So baseline to burn.
And one thing with that, is the baseline just solely nutrition foundation, or is there a fitness component to it that's like, okay, your baseline for training is this, your baseline for maybe like aerobic conditioning? Like, do you have a baseline outside of nutritionally?
Yeah, like a basic baseline for us right now, we have a few things. We have also what we call like our success signals. Like for coaches out there, it's biofeedback, okay? But with the macro perspective, we're also in the self-development space. So what we do with the baseline is, yes, we're understanding your nutrition, what's going on, what's going in, what's going out. We also understand like your activity level as well. We could go deeper. I know some clients probably like this because they're like into the whole like quantified self. Get me that whoop, get me that aura, get me your sleep data. We could do that as well.
Yeah.
But the basics there are like our 7 success signals, which is like looking at a biofeedback form of like your satiety, how does your sleep feel, how does your stomach speed, all these different things that we have in our frameworks. It's not just nutrition, but for us, nutrition is a main component and a mainstay. But we do look at athletic. And we do look at lifestyle baseline mechanics as well.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and one thing, one question I have alongside that, like, is that baseline, how important do you think that baseline is for people to set? Because I think a lot of people mess this up, and I want you guys to hit on this because I think too many people just jump into stuff and they don't have that baseline. But how important do you think that baseline is when it comes to sustaining and getting results?
Marcos, could I take this one real quick and then you go deeper?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's so freaking important that I, as a coach, probably wouldn't really work with someone until I have a good baseline with them. I know Marcos is too, because I've had too many clients where I'll say it myself. If I haven't done a baseline, they've probably messed up their nutrition, messed up their beliefs or behaviors around food, and even might have gotten injured with me. So as a coach, I've made all the mistakes underneath the sun. So I highly recommend the baseline, because you're working with someone off the street. Like when I was in the gyms, you're working on someone off the street and you're going, I want to jump into a class and lose weight, blah, 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 blah. Like Marco said, if you don't do that baseline class, I don't know what, I have nothing. I have no idea.
Yeah. And I think to further that, baseline is going to be a phase that your coach is going to basically try to come up with a recomposition when it comes to nutrition, right? We're trying to get in the right amount of protein and the right amount of total calories based on the information that is given in an initial intake form. So this is, again, a very educated guess of like where we think your maintenance level would be, right? So baseline is in fact maintenance, and it's kind of where a lot of different things start to go on with people, right? As soon as you start logging and tracking and having some sort of thing written down as you're starting to observe those things, do you really need to go into a 250 or 500 calorie deficit? Well, maybe not. Maybe you didn't have some semblance of how to go into the weekend, right? So this, initial intake, this baseline phase, again, it can last 4 to 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the person, because you make that initial best guess estimate, and there's other variables that start to get included in their day-to-day, right? So as you asked about the training protocol, with everybody I've worked with, I don't write training plans typically. I focus on nutritional baseline principles, because that other start to get worked in. And they're like, well, when are we making changes with food? I'm like, well, you went from 0 days of working out to 3 days of working out. You went from 2,000 steps to now 5,000, to then 8,000, to then 10,000. So all those new variables that are getting kind of brought onto the plate in this phase is where, yes, baseline is definitely going to be more nutritional adherence, but it doesn't mean you're not adding in other elements to it. So the more variables you start adding in, how do you know what changed? Did you get a body recomposition simply because you got your food in order, or is it because you also had these other things, started to get worked in? So you log that, you start seeing how much of that information is actually coming to the surface with people before making additional changes of phase, right? So this is just the general person that we see on average, right? Doesn't mean that someone doesn't come in and like, all right, I've already really established, I have good nutritional bones, and I want to go into a build phase, right? I want to build muscle, I want to build strength, I want to build capacity, right? All right, well, that's different, right? Like that person probably has some other nuances to them and their set point, and they may already have a baseline established, right? But more often than not, most people haven't given a baseline enough time because they think they're doing something well. And then we use the 2 most powerful words in coaching: show me. All right. Like, show me that is really the case. Because if you weren't seeking my help out, you wouldn't probably need this phase, yet here we are. Right. So show me what's going on, give it time, be patient. And again, I mean, not that we're not working on things in those calls with people in that phase, but it's really just, again, creating that understanding and showing people like where they're at when they actually hold themselves accountable and consistent. So that's how I look at baseline, because even us as coaches, if we've fallen off for a little while, right? We just started to be like, I don't really want to track as much anymore. And I'm just going to kind of go intuitive, and I'm just going to kind of eat the same meals, right now, right? It's as soon as you go into that level of like removing documentation to a degree, you need to go back to a baseline phase. You need to go back to and reestablish what the hell you're doing and see where you're at. Because, we know our metabolism's changing, our activity's different. We may have put on more muscle. I don't know. Right. So every time that I go to restart myself and rejuvenate, I'm going to get back in tracking. I want to eventually try to lose some body fat. I actually just used the poor man's version of baseline, which is what I call 3-2-1, 300 carb, 200 protein, 100 grams of fat. And then I just start adjusting based off of kind of my own feedback from week to week.
That's for a big guy like Marcos. Everybody listening. That's not for the average Joe walking around. But
hey, I tried the 3-2-1. Okay, so Marcos is like 210 built. I'm 178, 175. I did this when I was 168 coming off a photo shoot. I was like, yo, 3-2-1. More like 2-2-1 or something.
Yeah, I was about to say that's for me. If I did that exactly, I would be putting on about 15 pounds. So
that's crazy.
But yeah, I think that understanding of building that baseline at the beginning is such a fundamental thing that people miss out on. And also intertwined with that is the beauty of coaching, which is that you can build that baseline and still get amazing results if you know what to do while you're building the baseline, and I think that's the thing that people don't get when they don't have a coach is even if they are trying to build that baseline by themselves, they are going to be quick to jump into that burn or that build that you mentioned, and that baseline is not just a time period where you're trying to like establish a homeostasis or establish a standardized intake of food, but it also is a time that you can see amazing results. It's not just intended to only set you up for the future success. You can see amazing results in that period, and it's actually going to set you up for more success in the future. So that's really important. So you said the second B is burn, or is it build? What is the phasing here, or is this more just a coaching decision that you're making in terms of what phase the client is going into next?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
I don't think it truly matters to that degree, right? Of like which one you go into next, but it is based off of the client for sure. That's where I think it depends, right? Isn't that like kind of like the number one rule of coaching? It's like, well, what's the answer to that? It depends. So while it rolls off the tongue better saying baseline, build, balance, burn, right? Like if you change the order, it doesn't like flow as easily, right? Realistically, those next three phases, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure in a sense, right? Like let's just say we had someone that started with us last month, which we did. We had some people in October do this challenge. We set them all into like a baseline, like because none of them had tracked before, but we got a little heady and said, hey, based off of the stuff they gave us, we're going to cut a little off. So their baseline was a slight deficit, like intentionally, right? To help them see some change there. Because we knew that the phase that makes the most sense for them, based on a lot of their intakes was balance, because they're going into the holiday months. So now they can use the baseline understanding to help them build a balanced phase, which is again, still maintenance, but understanding that there's going to probably be a lot of days that are untracked, right? So with that's, balance effectively is like lifestyle balance, right? How are you integrating and interweaving these things, which might mean you cut off some calories throughout the week to make room for larger weekends so that you can keep yourself there, from a caloric perspective. And again, like, so that those other three phases are really kind of, again, choose your own adventure, but that's usually like coaches like feedback, right? When you're gaining that feedback and like what's making the most sense, then you can make like that most opportunistic call based on where your client wants to go. You don't want to steer them down a road that they don't want to go, right? And I'm definitely not going to want to be like, hey, you need to go and build more muscle right now, especially if Mrs. Jones is 180 pounds and realistically knows that 20-pound difference could help her actually start eating more food in the future, right? So yeah, it is. So the build, the burn, or the balance, again, it's kind of like it's periodization, right? So what period of life are we currently going into and what's going to make the most sense? And that comes through feedback, that comes through coaching. So while we'll eventually get to recording modules that'll help people understand those different phases, realistically right now it's based on people coming to us and saying, hey, what's going to make the most sense? I'm kind of thinking this, right? And our job as coaches is to guide the ship, right? And guide them, not really steer it and tell them exactly what to do. It's more of gaining feedback, trust, insight, helping them get there.
And just to say on that, like the balance, is a great aspect when we speak about balance, when it comes to body composition, kind of like what Marco said, it's that lifestyle balance integration where they can do some of the things that we're doing a little bit on autopilot. Yeah, you're not tracking as much, you're not doing as much, but you're still checking in, you're staying accountable still, but you're not so invested in your goal that it's like killing you and your mental health, in the sense of like it's on top of your mind all the time. You could do a lot of these things. And I think that when you can get into a balance phase or maybe during the holidays, maybe a little bit of a build because there's an extra amount of calories. You're seeing a lot more family. You could utilize some of that energy. It's easier mentally as a success signal because you're kind of just like, all right, cool. I'm quicker to kind of adjust on the fly, on the weekly average, or I'm able to see where the activities lie. Do I need to do some more steps? Do I need to train a little harder, or just back off on some calories here and there? And I think the baseline, we can coach it in so many ways. There's so many ways to skin that cat. Being a coach, there's some clients that they're like, I love the tracking. Some clients, like I've had a client lose 100 pounds with never tracking, they just use like hand portions or something like that, quote unquote. But there's just so many ways to kind of skin the bees of body composition as one needs to do it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that the conversation around obviously coaching, but just periodization in general, and people miss the boat on that. I talk a lot about it on my podcast just because a lot of people they've never heard about it. I talk to people all the time, new clients, current clients, about what that phasing looks like, understanding the time of year, understanding what you actually are willing to commit to right now, because a lot of people want change, but they're not actually willing to commit to what is required to get that change. So speaking on that, the Athlete 2.0 model, the 4 Bs are baseline, burn, build, and balance, right? Those
Yeah.
are the 4?
There's
Yeah.
one more. There's one more. It's called
There's the
Beyond.
graduation. There's the
A
graduation
graduation.
phase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beyond is it goes deeper. Marcus, I'll let you kind of go into Beyond, and I'll follow through after.
Yeah. So I think everybody starts some sort of goal with a potential end goal in sight. And beyond is what we're all chasing. Beyond is something that Seamus and I probably don't even have locked down quite yet. Because so many times as we're in the phase of like, okay, I finally have reached this goal, I'm in the beyond, like the world is my oyster, you then kind of go back to one of the other 4. So beyond is kind of like the autonomy to go do whatever the hell you want for a period of time.
Yeah.
But then really start understanding like there has to be another goal, and it's probably laid in that periodization. And beyond is again, these are 3 maintenance phases, but they're all a little different, right? Balance means you have a level of tracking, but there's days that you're kind of untracked, right? Baseline is really tracking everything, and beyond is like you're not really doing a whole lot. You're just kind of going off of other success signals and keeping them intact, right? So that's you removing a lot of the other potential stressors of tracking, journaling, things of that nature for a period of time. And you're really just maybe honing on, for me, it's like I'll just step on the scale and use that as a feedback tool and look at myself in the mirror when I'm in a phase where I feel like things are really good. But it inevitably will fade, it'll wane because you're not pursuing anything for a period of time. And then you're in your head, especially as an athlete, you're like, what's the next thing? What's the next Mount Everest I'm looking to climb? Mm-hmm. So I have a client right now. She actually, we've been deep into a burn. We've been deep into this for a while. She started at like 167 pounds, and she's like right on the cusp of getting into the 120s, right? So she's like seeing amazing progress. We're seeing body composition and fat loss happening via DEXA. Like that's another element we've integrated into her phase to, track progress, because sometimes the scale can be a bitch. We all know this, right? Mm-hmm. With her, she spent basically a month now kind of in a balance / beyond phase. And, she's like, look, I got to this goal. It was my DEXA scan. I got my feedback. I'm going on vacation. I know there's going to be 2 weeks where there is no tracking going on. And she's living the lifestyle and habits to a high level that when she came back and stepped on the scale 2 weeks later, she only saw a 1 or 2 pound difference, right? It's from her absolute low, right? So like, okay. And then she kind of, was like, hey, like I'm a little bit busy with work this week. Let's reconnect like a week later. So at that point, I hadn't talked to her in a month, just kind of given the circumstances of vacation plus workflow. And, on our call today, she's mentioning, like it felt good to be in this phase and have the autonomy to just kind of live life and, go and do these social outings, not really care. Like it wasn't her doing that balance phase where she's in MyFitnessPal tracking and then doing like hedging her bet to still see her composition. It was purely just living, existing, and doing her habitual things to the highest level that she knew how. And, finally she came back. She's like, I'm ready for the next thing now. I needed that month. Right. But like, so does beyond truly last forever? I don't know. Does a happy fairy tale ending seem to be the end of it? No, they seem to come out with new iterations of the same thing, or they move on to like the sequel, right? Like,
Yeah.
um,
20 years later. I think
Well,
there's
let
some
me ask you
tactical.
one thing with that though. Do you think that you can remain in that beyond forever? Because what
So
I think is that likely not. Like, I think it is very hard to just remain there forever and not ever have another goal, you know? So what do you think on that?
I so I wanted to touch on this and I'll answer that. Like, I think you can stay there for some time, but to be tactical of like the beyond, like what Marcos was saying about his client and our clients, like living at the highest level, like they've done, they've been coached by us and they've done these different phases, and they're probably taking on habits that they now are bringing into this beyond phase that they never probably did before, where it's like autopilot. Like one of the beyond kind of habits that I like to do, and this is from PN, Precision Nutrition, is like people they go out, but they'll go out, they'll probably like eat with their opposite hand, as an example, if we're getting tactile, right? Like they're they're probably doing one of three things. They're watching what they eat, they're watching how much they eat, or they're watching the types of they're watching the time that they eat. So you could play with that, but no one's gonna say a thing. You're not gonna be that weird person at Thanksgiving that's like, hey, did you bring did you bring Tupperware of your own food, or did you
Yeah.
like bring a scale out? Because I've been that person. So it's like you don't want to be that. I don't think anyone does. But it's that beyond phase, to answer your question, is it's going to be short lived, because I did that. I had a big deficit. I had a cut. I had a photo shoot. I did 3 weeks of like not caring, quote unquote, but because I'm so like conscious as an athlete 2.0, I'm very conscious of my goals. I'm like, well, I'm still leveraging protein at every meal. I'm, making sure to get my steps in. I'm just kind of watching how I look in the mirror. You're just still conscious of it.
Yeah.
But you're not necessarily so adamant about it. And you're going to do it for a few weeks, and you're going to be like, all right, let's get back on the horse. Let me hit up my coach. What are we doing?
yeah,
What's going on?
I think Beyond exists for older population people, because then they have these. I would almost say like someone that reaches level of retirement probably can actually truly exist in that phase, because they have so much more time in which they can actually express their habits. That helps them not have to worry so much about the meticulous nature of logging, tracking, and
Hmm.
modernity as a whole. So I think it's kind of age dependent, to be honest with you. You coach someone up so well, and a lot of people in our like Cenogenics practice, they don't need as we call them legacy patients that have been around for
Yeah.
like 10 plus years. They don't really need the health coach anymore. We're still reaching out and seeing if there's something else they're pursuing. They're like, nope, I'm all good. Like, and you're like, what do you mean you're all good? You know what I mean? Like, it's so weird for us to like have that, like,
Yeah.
you don't want like any
And,
additional, like,
and they
well,
are doing good. And they are doing good. Like they'll come in,
yeah,
do the analysis. I'm like, this guy's crushing it.
yeah. So like those people are existing in Beyond because we can look at their biometrics, their VO2 max, their blood sugar levels, their metabolic health, their lipid panel, their everything that's going on internally and externally. And they're existing in a level that they view as very high functioning for the current state at which they exist. But I do think for us younger people, I would say people less than the age of 50, we still got some things, we got some endeavors and some juice we want to squeeze, out of life. Whereas those 50 plus people, they squeeze a lot out of it. They're more about
Hmm.
this understanding. They're going on the vacations. They're doing life a little bit different than probably, again, athlete 2.0. So again, like I think anybody that has gone through athletic endeavors, you're looking at the next PR. You want to potentially get stronger or faster or tackle a new obstacle, right? So the beyond phase exists. Again, this might be like, if we can just use periodization again and talk about a sport. Let's just talk about like hockey or football. They spend half their year in which they are in sport or in season, right? And it's a whole different game that they're worried about. Then, the culmination happens, the Super Bowl, and we know only two teams get there. And then we know playoffs, there was only a select number of teams, and other teams, they're done at the end of the season. What do they do right when they finish their season? Right? Do they go right back into training? No, they probably exist in a state where like they're prioritizing recovery, and they're doing a lot of
Yep.
things that are set with some different intentions for a period of time. And they need to exist there. They need to recover mentally, physically, emotionally, you name it. But eventually, well, guess what? It's year 17 or year 21, like LeBron. And he's like, job ain't done. You know what I mean? He's like, I still want to get back out there for whatever freaking reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I think that for our people, again, beyond might be like you no longer need us, right? You no longer
Mhm.
need us directly with the accountability of one-to-one coaching anymore, but you still probably need a community. You still need to throw ideas out there and try some different things, or try to do it on your own. So that phase of existence, I think it's the goal. It's like the culmination, it's the pinnacle, right? When I was at CrossFit Max Effort, we had the standard to get to level 5. And level 5 was like literally the perfect CrossFit athlete. Level 5 literally was unobtainable. But it doesn't mean you don't strive for it,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yep.
are you going to run a sub 5 mile and also squat 500 pounds? And also be able to do like a sub 2 Fran time, and also be able to clean and jerk 350, and like all these numbers that literally looked fucking preposterous, yet that was still like the goal. You're like, I got all these things in level 4, I got most of them in level 3, but you see that you think that it's possible if you can
Yep.
try to like ascend that and reach that, the top of the mountain. And again, like, to my understanding, when Zach wrote those standards, he was like, yeah, like no human should be able to actually do this, but it doesn't mean that the people that we work with are not trying to get there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Push for it. Push for it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. I tell my clients this all the time. I'm like, look at things from a perspective of, we're aiming for perfection, and we know we're not going to hit it. We know we're going to fall short, but if you're aiming for that, at least you're going to be attaining something higher than what you would if you set a lower standard for yourself. So I love that. Now, one thing I do want to touch on before we get done here, I want y'all to just cast a vision of what you want this Athlete 2.0, the community, the coaching. What does this look like in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Maybe one of y'all could take the immediate time frame of 1 to 2 years, and then another one
Yeah.
could take over a little bit more long-term view.
I mean, I'll just kind of showcase what we're doing in the short term, and Marcos can go into the long term. But we've had our macro perspective podcast here, and it's more of a self-development podcast, but that encumber some of that came into fruition was our Athlete 2.0 framework, which is our community. We're digitally based, but not digitally bound. So with that being said, what we love to do is get people in. We're coaching people 3 times per week in that community. We're answering questions in the product in the forum style in the Facebook group, and we're giving away free resources. And we want to build that community too. Right now, we're pushing for what you call a legacy number, or what they call leaving a legacy. Marcos and I got it from a guy named Adam Lane Smith. It's like, at some point, if you can touch 240 lives, technically you've left a legacy in this world. I think our community could be bigger than 240, so that's in the near future, but we want to be serving a community of in the hundreds, or up there, that we can obviously help and serve, and they're actually utilizing our services and our free community. And that's there. And also, we do want to do we've done some nutrition seminars and some nonprofits, which I know Mark's going to speak here in just a moment. But again, digitally based, we do a lot of our stuff online because that keeps us in the world wide. We can coach people in that way. I love that coaching framework, because you're not bound by personal trainer hours or health and wellness coaching hours, where you just have to be face to face with the person. But also, being digitally based, you get a little bit bound, so we don't want to be bound by that. We want to have events every month or every 90 days or something like that, where we're doing a nutrition seminar, or doing a fitness event. I know for my 30th birthday, it's coming up in February, where we want to do like a nonprofit, like crazy workout kind of thing. So we're trying to put our heads together. That's like in the short term, from like, the next 6 weeks to 90 days. Marcos, you want to kind of touch upon like the long term, my man?
Yeah, from the long-term perspective, it's really a community. And community means that there's a lot of things going on within the community, and ties to like almost creating FOMO if you don't go to an event. Obviously, we know that that can be hard given time of year or whatever else might be going on in your life. But at the same time, we want to show people that we're not only existing to provide these resources that help create a sustainable lifestyle and people to lean on when you're struggling, but also then go have some fun with that group of people. Because I feel like sometimes when you're being coached, it can feel very isolated. You're the only person in this fight. It's you against you.
Yep.
But when you then realize you have a lot of like-minded individuals that are obviously trying to go after the same goal, then we are making that impact, right? We're having that ripple effect. And we decided to keep that group free so people can be observing and applying the principles and hopefully understanding the framework that we're trying to like put out into the world. But if they need to tier up and actually get more one-to-one or group coaching, that there is options available there. So success in the future is, like Seamus said, it's community events. It is actually having that community help support and be a part of the nonprofit organization as well. And in the last event, I quickly learned that while the event idea had a lot of great things going for it, the one thing that we didn't have to tap into was the community, a group of like-minded individuals that want to continue to show up to this event and or events of the future so that we can continue to give back to our cause of the world. Everybody has some sort of passion project outside of making money that they're really involved in my eyes. At least that's how I've come to see it in my 30 years of being here. And so to me, it is, it's actually really simple. It was, there was a moment in my youth where Jay Cutler, Mr. Olympia, like during his prime, came in and gave a nutrition seminar. And he was not giving advice as to like what to do to be a bodybuilder. He was just talking about like a day in the life of Jay Cutler. You know what I mean? This was before YouTube, basically. And he's just, he's talking about these principles and things. And you see this guy, and he's on stage, and obviously he's like freakish, right? I don't want to be like the freakish presenter, but I want to be like, oh, that's a guy that looks like he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. Why is he coming and giving his time away for free? Like the kids are asking that. Are you a big deal? Why would you do this? And that's already happened in a couple of the events. I was like, look, I'm a nobody. I'm just here to kind of give you like my understanding, because I wish somebody would have given that to me. So those events help funnel that happening. And then, we just start with, again, the communities that Seamus and I are a part of. Seamus in LA, I'm in Las Vegas, go school to school, and we're able to not only provide the understanding, but also the actual food. Because to me, the only way that a nutrition event ever really works is if you get your hands dirty with like creating and crafting the plate. Granted, there's only going to be select options that we've obviously chosen, right? But then they're like, oh my God, like I can create this, or I can have my parents do this, and I can start maybe being the advocate for health inside of my community or inside of my family. And so like right now, the goal, that sprint, like Seamus said, 240 people would be great, in, however many, in 90 days, right? Seeing if we can reach that many people. But realistically, we probably need far more people than that are willing to either dedicate some time and come out and do these things with us, be a role model of that like existing structure, and talk to the kids as well. Also bring it into their kids' lives. So we're just really trying to create that ripple effect in the long term, because we see the statistics on the other end from our clinical perspective. We know that 60% of people are classified as obese. We know that most people are walking around with 2 comorbidities that they have no idea about. Most people come into our clinic, don't even know they're type 2 diabetic, and they think that the food that they're consuming is actually healthy and nutritious until you realize you're really not, because you haven't had that very simple rudimentary understanding that, again, we hope to provide and partner with other people in the future to do that. And the last thing I'll say there is our goal with that, like obviously build a community, funnel it down so that we're giving the next generation of coaches an opportunity. A lot of people don't know that this could be a potential career path. They don't know that like helping other people not only can feel good, but can be something viable to like make a pretty substantial living, depending how committed you may want to be. So our goal is hopefully by the end of this year, at least one scholarship opportunity from the nonprofit that one gives them a credential. So going into college, you're going to have a nutrition certification that you can charge $20 a month for some students nearby and help them understand how to navigate the commons, and eat food appropriately while you're in college. Freaking dope, right?
Yeah. Cool.
You give them a little understanding of entrepreneurship, how to sell their services for $20 to like their peers, which is what we do effectively, right? And then also give them some money for school as well. So not only give them certification, whether it's precision nutrition or NCI, that's future. Yeah, we still got to figure out those things out, see who would be willing to partner with us and, help us, make that come to fruition. And hell, it might be us actually paying for the first couple of them to show people we're serious, which is totally fine. That's what the funds are for. And then from there, again, continue to make lasting impact with health coaching, because like Seamus said, we're trying to get board certified so that we can help as many people, but there's a cap. There's only so many people that we can actually influence one-to-one or in a group. We need a lot of us. We need you.
We need help. Like in our community, I feel like, we've gotten some good fundraising. Our team gave us some money. We're finding some money in different ways. And one of the things I wanted to touch upon too is culture and family. I mean, Marcos touched on the family aspect of like, hey, we go into the schools, it's the kid teaching the mom and dad what food looks like. Hey, mom and dad, we got to slow down a little bit and sit down. I know you guys are working. I know you guys are busy, but that's a small kid telling the parents. I wish I was that kid growing up, because I wish there was things about food and nutrition, because being a wrestler, I was body dysmorphic and stuff like that. I wish someone like me, I had to become my own hero, could go back and go like, hey, this is, I love the competitiveness. I love you being an athlete, but like there's some things here you're missing foundationally. And also culture. I think Marcos and I got this pale complexion. I'm Filipino culture, different. Yeah, we deal with so many different clients and cultures that we also want people to understand that in this community, we're very agnostic in a sense that even though we're doing this tracking, we're doing a build phase, a burn phase, blah, 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 blah. And coaches are very much about macros and stuff like that. This is where I think Marcos and I finesse as coach can come in, because we know how to deal with different cultures and how to deal with different foods, because we've just seen it time and time again, where it's like, yeah, you can have, that Filipino dish that you want. We just have to manage this. Or if you want this Mediterranean dish, we have to manage that. So, there's a lot there. Marcos and I are trying to build something beyond both of us and beyond both of our imagination, but we do need the help, and we want people to be part of that community in one way or the other. If it could be someone that knows, hey, I know a school district in Vegas that would like to see, that would be phenomenal. Like anything would be super, super helpful.
Yeah, man, that is so cool. I actually didn't know the ins and outs of all of that. So that is extremely cool just to hear the vision there. And obviously, just the overall theme of just impact and being able to change the way that people view nutrition and the lives that they have through that. So absolutely love that. I want y'all to finish off by plugging yourself. But before we get into that, I want you guys to answer a question for me. I ask all my guests this. Each one of you are going to spend about a minute. Give me your answer here. And that question is, what does health mean to you? And then to go along with that, what is one action that you would give the listener right now to take steps towards doing that immediately?
Marcos, you want to take this one first?
No, I want to hear yours first. You go first.
Yeah, sure. So with health, it's different for everyone, first and foremost. But I think a great example of that for me is having some sense of semblance and responsibility for your own health in one way or the other, and being able to be intentional with it wherever you're at. If you're overweight, classified obese, or something like that, maybe that's something you need to have a conversation with yourself. Or hey, if you have a metabolic disorder or something deeper than that, having that conversation and finding out these things and figuring it out, and then taking responsibility. It may not be your fault. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility at this time. And one thing you could do for that is kind of like we talk about in baseline, just start assessing. You don't need to do anything crazy right now. Just start finding out some information. We do it with Synergenics, where we do diagnostics. Maybe you just need to start tracking on an app, or, better yet, maybe you just need to talk to someone, be like, hey, what can I do better in my health? And maybe it might be your partner that goes like, well, actually, I know you eat a lot of candy on Friday nights, whenever we watch movies together, hon. And it's just understanding who you are outside of yourself objectively might be a good way to start assessing that and start taking responsibility for your health.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's great. Marcos?
Yeah, health to me is the ability to not be paralyzed by all the information that is getting out there in the world, and actually finding ways to apply it. So what I mean by that is the rate at which information can be consumed relating health and wellness is very alarming. It used to be years. That's why when you went to the doctor, they would kind of tell the same thing for 10 years, because it took 10 years to get the study. Now there's new things coming out like every 3 to 1.5 months, right? So health is being able to look at those things and understanding if it's going to actually serve you in a way that's going to benefit the impact that you hope to have with your lifelong outcomes. So you want to be able to, niche it down to something that's specific to you, understand how to apply it in a very succinct manner, and be able to actually feel your best. That is simply it. Don't be inundated with all the new fad things that are coming out. Really just, stand your guard, and let people know, hey, I know this study came out, but I'm also seeing this. And health has a variety of different ways of getting to the same outcome. It's very much so like math. Like as a kid, you learn 1 + 1 is 2, right? You learn that there's a system to doing things. But as you get to the higher levels, there are so many ways to get to a solution. and your way is unique, and that way that works for you. Again, help other people get there, give them a good point of guidance, but don't overstep. Let them get there, with taking some of their L's as well.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. All right, guys, why don't you finish this off? Plug yourself for everybody listening so they know where they can follow you, when things are coming out, what's coming out, what you got going now, and then we'll finish it off.
Well, right now you guys can follow us at the Macro Perspective, Spotify, YouTube. We're coming out with like 2 episodes per week. And you can find our community called Athlete 2.0 on Facebook. Come on in and join. I'm Seamus Matthew Sullivan on Instagram. You can add me on Facebook as well. And then Marcos is Marcos, what are you on Facebook or Instagram?
On Instagram, it's Marcos Luke Rivera. And then the community that Seamus mentioned is TMPC. So the Macro Perspective, collective, whatever that is, Athlete 2.0. And if you're looking for it on Facebook, we'll give Jonathan the link, but it's facebook.com/groups/the Macro Perspective. And that's our Athlete 2.0 Facebook group. Again, free for everybody. You just got to fill out the couple questions of like why you want to be there, essentially. Give us some information about yourself so we can hopefully help serve you in any way that you are currently needing help. And the other thing that we'll also plug is, just a discovery call. So if you do choose to potentially look at that as an option, we want to get on a call with you, kind of see what your health goals are, and see if there is certain things that you need specifically catered to you, or again, do you actually need to just start with understanding and trying to apply some of the free resources that we're going to push out there, which is basically happening 5 times a week if you include the podcast. So 3 episodes that are happening inside the community, where you can ask questions, and also the podcast episodes that are more forward thinking. It's not just fitness anymore on that's self-development, understanding how those things connect, and that framework there, again, because we like frameworks, or the 5 F's. We're focusing on food, fitness, finance, focus, and family. So if you're interested in any of those topics, that's our podcast.
Absolutely, guys. Thank y'all so much for coming on. I'll make sure to put all the links in the description below for the listeners. And if this does resonate with you guys, if you're resonating with their message, please reach out to them. Obviously, I do coaching as well, but I want you as a listener, as a potential client, to go to the person, the coach that speaks to you. So please reach out to them if this does speak to you. And that's the episode, guys.